Hey, my name is Nicholson, and in this video, we're going to talk about what is a good type of property to invest in to make you good money and good returns. Well, this channel is all about this kind of stuff, but this video will deep dive into that. So stick around to the end because you want to make sure you learn everything that you can from this. Now, on this channel, we're actually on a journey at the moment. We're building a portfolio for myself. We're expanding mine. But we're also building a portfolio for my two daughters. We've got Georgia, who's 21. We just bought our first property together all the way up in Doncaster. We bought a 2-bedroom terrace house up there. And we're currently buying a flat down in Dorking in Surrey. So we're actually showing you all the behind the scenes of everything that's happening with that. So do make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell notification to see exactly how we progress and learn some stuff along the way. And we're also building a portfolio for my newborn baby, Amelie, who is just 1. And I want to show you how we structure that as well to avoid inheritance tax and everything like that. Now, you want to know, what is the best type of property to invest in? Now, you've got different types of property. Maybe you could have a flat or a house. Those are the two most common ones. Now, Georgia and I are buying one of each of those at the moment. We've already bought the house in Doncaster and we're in legals currently for the flat in Dorking in Surrey. Now, I've got a mixed bag portfolio myself. So I've been in property since 1999. My first investment was a flat in Dorking in Surrey, a studio flat that I bought for £45,000. Now, that property has really helped me leverage, and I've used leverage to leverage that asset to buy future properties, as well as investing profits from businesses and stuff like that I've got as well. So that property in Dorking was purchased for £45,000. A few years later, it was worth £100,000. Now, we bought that on an interest-only mortgage, right? So we bought it, sorry, we didn't, that's a lie. We bought it on a repayment mortgage, right? So on 45 grand, because it was initially a residential property that I lived in. And so the deposit for that property was £3,000, right? So that meant that we had a mortgage of £42,000. Cool, right? And so every month I was paying capital and repayment. And so my payments were reducing this £42,000 that we owed. Now, eventually it was worth £100,000. At that stage, I decided to move out, right? And so I moved out of that property and I was able to then put a buy-to-let mortgage on that property. Now, this had probably gone down to, I don't know, let's just say 35,000. I'm not sure exactly how much. But let's just say I owed £35,000 on here. And I had a property that was now worth 100. Now, on a buy-to-let mortgage, they will lend you 75% loan to the value, meaning they would lend me £75,000 against this asset that I purchased here, right? So I'm able to borrow 75, but I owe 35, right? So that means that if I paid this off, I'd have an extra 40 grand that I could put in my bank and then use that to buy other assets, which is exactly what I did, right? So we took a 45,000 purchase, time inflation made that worth £100,000. Then we were released equity, and we've got other videos on this channel that talk about more in depth how that works. We released equity from that property, giving us £40,000 in the bank. Now, we owed the bank then £75,000, which the new tenant was paying for me. So they made the monthly payments and made me some profit on the rent, right? And so maybe I don't know the numbers, it was so long ago now, but I think the payments were around £300 a month for the mortgage, and then the tenant was paying £650, right? So after a few costs and stuff like that, we made around £250 a month in profit, which was pretty good. And they were paying the mortgage for me, and so no payments were coming from me on that, and that was still going up in value, right? Now, we took that 40 grand that we had, and then we invested in a property in Hastings. We bought a flat. I bought a flat in Hastings first. Then a few years later, The flat went up in value in Dorking, the flat went up in Hastings. I released equity mostly from the Dorking property then, and then I bought a house in Hastings, right? So I've got multiple houses around the UK and flats, so I'm actually pretty well versed in flats versus houses. Now, which one do you prefer, or do you think is the best? Do comment below. My personal opinion is, going forward, I would prefer to just buy houses now, and here's why. The reason I prefer houses is, normally on a house, it is a freehold property, right? It is a freehold property. So that means you own the land and you own the property, and you can pretty much do what you want. So if the roof leaks and you don't want to fix the roof, which wouldn't be very smart, but if you didn't want to fix that roof that month, you could wait and fix it whenever you choose. It's not a clever thing to do that, but it is an option. Now with flats, where I found flats frustrating is different people have different agendas in flats. So normally on a flat, you own a leasehold, right? So you might get a lease on it for 100 years, and you might have to pay into a sinking fund, a management fee every month. One I've got in Dorking now, you pay £50 a month on that. And so that goes into the pot. And then if, for example, the roof leaked, then all the people in there would need to pay towards the roof, right? Now, hopefully there would be enough money in the sinking fund, but if there wasn't, you personally would have to top that up yourself. And that initial property that I bought in Dorking, the 45 grand one, I went backpacking in 2003, and I got a letter that one of my family members opened and said, yeah, you owe £20,000 to fix the roof, and you have 7 days to pay. And so these are the sorts of problems you can get with a leasehold. Now, the problem is that I didn't think that the work was worth that, because that was £20,000 from each flat. So they were looking for, I think there's 5 flats in there, so like 100 grand. Mostly it was for the scaffolding and stuff like that. They wanted a huge sum of money. I'm backpacking around the world, living off 8 grand for a year. I didn't have that money, so I had to keep battling and battling and battling. But the fortunate thing was the price went up, and when we did a remortgage later, we were able to pay it off, right? And so that allowed me to pay it off with equity in the property, but I didn't want to do that, right? And so we have the flat that we've got in Hastings. Different people have different agendas in there. One of the freeholders is very keen on like fully rendering outside the building. It just doesn't seem like a smart thing to do, because it's at the seaside, it's getting hit by salt water all the time, and it's just going to keep needing work and all this sort of stuff. Other tenants in there, one's a builder, he doesn't think it's the smartest strategy in there, and so we will always have meetings, and there's a little bit of conflict there. Should we do this? Should we do that? And so I just feel with flats, you can be given this big bill at any moment, and you can't always control that, right? Now with houses, it's more on your terms, right? So yes, you want to keep the property in good condition. You want to do decent upkeep, because that will keep it secure. It will make sure that no more major work needs to be done in the future, because if you leave like a little leak in a house, that can cause major structural problems in the future that will end up costing you tens of thousands of pounds, but you're more able to do it on your terms, right? And so often with a flat, there'll be a management company, and that management company gets a kickback from the builder that does the repair work. So there's no incentive to shop around. There's no real incentive to find the cheapest person for the job, is what I found historically. Now, I did just say that I'm also buying a flat in Dorking at the moment. Now, the reason for that is because it's in a block that I already own another property. And so for me, that makes sense to then get more properties eventually in that same block and eventually own the whole block. So that's the only reason that I would invest in flats now going forward, is if I could buy a substantial amount of the properties in that block or the whole block, or to build a flat. So if you were developing and you were building on some land, 100% makes sense to build flats, because you've only got one roof and the cost is split between 5-6 properties, right? In that instance, it makes way better sense to do that. Now, houses are my preference. Next, so what other type of properties are you looking at? Now, if you invest in somewhere like London, you're going to get good capital appreciation. And that means that the value of that house is going to keep continuing to rise. And so my properties that I have in the southeast of England, in Dorking and Hastings, more so in Dorking, have gone up significantly with capital appreciation. So that flat that I bought for 45 grand in 1999 in 2022 is worth more than £250,000, meaning it has gone up more than 5 times the price that I initially paid for it. 5 times, which is crazy. Whereas Hastings, the house prices haven't gone up. They probably doubled in 20 years, which is fine. So it's been a little bit slower, but more recently it's getting faster, that capital appreciation. And so what I find in Dorking though is that the rental income is fairly low compared to the value of the house. Whereas, so an example, in Dorking, I have a flat worth £250,000 and I get 1,000 in rent, right? 1,000 in rent. Now in Doncaster, we've just bought for £60,000 and we're going to get 500 in rent. So we put 60 in to get 500 in rent. Whereas in Dorking, to get 500 in rent, we're having to put in £125,000. We're having to buy, because we've got the property worth 250, right? And we get a grand for 250. So 125 is the money that we need to put in to actually get 500 quid back. So that's what you need to consider when you're looking to invest. Do you want capital appreciation, meaning the value to go up and then you take big lumps of money out at different stages with equity releases that you can buy other properties? Or do you want a property where you make good return on your money straight away? Like in the north of England, you can make 15-20% return on your money very quickly by the money you're putting in compared to the rent that you're getting here. So that makes a big difference, guys. And so I want you to think about that. Think about what's the difference here and what do you want to do for your strategy. Don't feel that you have to do what I say. Everyone is different. And so I invest in different areas. So I have Dorking for my capital appreciation, and hopefully that will continue for many years. I have Hastings where I've got good capital appreciation, not as high as Dorking, but my rents are pretty good. The rents in Dorking are fairly similar to the Hastings ones, and the houses are cheaper there. And then I've got my northern properties where the rent is really high, but the house prices are cheap. And so that gives me a mixed portfolio. And so if the market doesn't go up too much, the northern houses, I'm not really going to care because they never really go up that much in value, right? It doesn't make much difference to me, regardless if the market goes up or down. And also the northern ones are more protected. Like in 2008, yes, they did have a big crash, but they've leveled out now and they're not likely to crash whatever happens in the market. The north is way more protected going forward than it is in the south. London prices, you need like 8-9 times your salary to get that. Up north, some places, some people only need 1.5 times their salary to be able to afford a house. So I don't feel that that's going to crash significantly. In 2008, it crashed because the lenders weren't lending, right? So that's what I want you to think about here. What type of property is good for you? Do you feel that flats are good for you? They can be. The downsides are obviously you could get hit with a large bill out of your control and you can't control when that comes. Or do you think houses are good for you? Houses are going to be more expensive to get into, but you've got more control of when things get done and stuff like that. So look, I hope that got you thinking. I really want to know your comments on this. I want to know your thoughts. Are you an investor in flats or houses? Or are you going to be an investor in flats or houses? Comment below and let me know. And look, let's have a conversation in our Facebook group. We've got a free Facebook group called the Property Accelerator. We're trying to build that up now. There's more than 400 members at the time of recording this. In the description here is a link where you can just click on that and join it. And one of our team will accept you in the next few days. Subscribe and join us on this journey. Remember, we're going to Doncaster today, so we're going to show you all the behind the scenes of what's going on with that project, so you can learn some stuff along the way and just see how that's coming along. Do go and check out this video here. If that one's not for you, go and check out all the other videos on this channel. There's tons now. We've got nearly 100 videos of really insightful education for your property journey. I'm James Nicholson. Stay blessed. Check out that video now, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.